Well, let's open the next file. This is called Chart Lies. Now just sit back and watch some of the things that you'll see people do to try and lie with charts. You'll notice that we didn't cover 3D charts in this lesson at all because 3D charts are a great way to lie with charts. This is the exact same data, but when you take a pie chart and turn it on its side, anything in the front of the chart looks much, much larger. Both dark wedges are 25%. If I'm going to the labor union to tell them how much they're costing us, I'm going to use the chart on the bottom where that 25% wedge looks 2.5 times bigger than the wedge in the back. Moving on to the next worksheet. 3D column charts aren't much better at all. No one knows whether they're supposed to look at the front of the column or the back of the column. But let's take a close look. If you follow the 3000 grid line around, none of the bars touch 3000. But the exact same data plotted on a 2D chart, clearly the Q3 and Q4 bars are above 3000. Let's move on to the cone chart. Now, I joked before that if you ever create a cone chart, you're likely to end up in Professor Tufte's next book, and here's why. Here's a company where they're spending 27% on administration. That's the true chart on the top. They changed that to a cone chart, and all of a sudden that 27% looks like nothing. The top series in cone and pyramid charts always looks smaller than everything else. Moving on to the next worksheet. Here we've changed the scale along the x-axis. In the top left chart, because we've zoomed in, sales look really erratic. If that's not the message that someone wants to produce, they can zoom the scale way out like the chart on the bottom, and all of a sudden sales look smooth. If you change this to a 3D line chart on the right-hand side and play with perspective, you can actually make it look like the sales are going up. Moving on to the next worksheet. Sales are increasing. It looks great. But look again. They reverse the order of the series along the x-axis. If no one's paying attention, they won't notice 2007 is the lowest bar, and we've been losing revenue every year. Moving on. Here we're looking at marketing costs. They're spiraling out of control. They're through the roof. That's the true chart on top. Well, if you're the VP of marketing and you have to explain this, just stick your slice in between the other 4 slices. No one will be able to figure out if you're going up or down. Actually, if you look at the dark gray, the third series in the area chart, it actually looks like you're going down. Let's go on to the next sheet. Well, here's a situation where that top chart makes it look like things are going really great. But in reality, that's only 2 data points. The person that created this chart took those 2 data points and forecasted out into the future. In reality, if we had looked at the entire data set, things were going well up until about 2001, and then since then, they've been in a tailspin. Let's go on to the next sheet. Now, if you ever see this kind of chart, someone truly is lying to you because Excel will not create this chart. This is one of the charts that Professor Tufte talks about in his book. In order to mock this up, I had to go out and bring in clip art and completely confuse things. If you look closely, you'll notice that the blue dots are the actual height of the series. But when I pasted the clip art in, instead of just increasing the height of the clip art, I increased the height and the width. Exports went from 100 to 300, which is a 3-fold increase, but the area of that last symbol is 9 times larger than the area of the 2005 symbol. Finally, if your numbers don't look good, instead of plotting the original numbers, plot the change in the numbers. Here we have a mayor who's watched the city basically lose half of its population, but rather than talking about that, he says, well, hey, the population decline is slowing. Shows it as negative bars, and again, things look like they're improving. These are just some of the ways that people can lie with charts, sometimes inadvertently, but sometimes on purpose. If you're in a meeting and you see charts like this, it'll raise your radar to start thinking about what the real data is. I'll close this file. Okay, let's open the next file. Advanced types. This is a bonus file for you. These are all chart types that I wrote about in my book, Excel 2007 Charts and Graphs. They're all charts that don't look anything at all like you would expect Excel charts to look like. Some of them were pretty wild in that they took an incredible amount of steps to create. They're here for you to explore. If you're interested in any of these charts, feel free to pick up my book, Excel 2007 Charts and Graphs, where I explain how to make each one. I'll close this file.